Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Between the Shadows. This is Kristen, and as always, I am joined by my very favorite co-host with Kara, and welcome to the show, everyone.
Hey, guys.
This is episode 39 of Between the Shadows. Before we get started, we just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. By now, you guys have all heard about the Remembrance Weekend in Burbank, California, July 5th and so we have planned to be there, as most of you already know. So if you're planning on coming, the event is sold out, but the rooms are sold out too. But the Friday night event is free to everyone. It's open to the public. So if you're in the area, if you plan to be in the area, you should come. It's going to be a good time. And just remembering Laura Parker and Jonathan Frid, and it's going to be a wonderful time. And second of all, if you guys haven't seen already, about a month or so ago, we did our third anniversary episode of Between the Shadows with our very special guest, Mr. Ansel Faraj,
Yes.
which was a great time. And we just want to say thank you to Ansel Faraj for literally carving out time to share with us. That was such a great time.
Yeah,
And
it was fun.
the great Nick D coming out this month. We're excited for that. That is on the pre-order list.
It is.
So check it out. And also, since our last episode, we joined in the first annual Dark Shadows Podcast Summit with Terror at Collinwood with Miss Penny Dreadful. Oh my gosh, what a great time that was too. Just sharing opinions and love and passion for Dark Shadows, this thing that we love so much. And it really is an excellent time. And one last thing, I got the idea from Miss Penny Dreadful, so thank you for this. But we have set up kind of like a fun page for the podcast at buymeacoffin.com/Between the Shadows. We will leave a link in the description. If anyone feels led to donate, no, absolutely 100% no pressure, just to help us offset the costs of creating the podcast and doing things for the podcast. We always appreciate your listening. We appreciate your comments and just the involvement that you listeners have given to us. It means the world to us. So thank you very much. And we'll leave a link for that if anybody feels led. No pressure, once again. But enough for now, and on with the show. So last time we talked about a regular episode of Between the Shadows, we left off where Eve has come to life.
Yeah.
The experiment was finally a success, and that is where we are going to pick up.
Let's go.
Let's go. Episode 39. And before we begin, just as a reminder, we are covering episodes 597 through 606. So here, Eve has come to life, and she has had a completely different reaction than Adam had when first waking up on the table.
Mm-hmm.
She can speak, she can move, she knows words, she's versed. She doesn't need to be taught anything. Her memory seems to be a little spotty at first, but as Julia said, there's got to be some trauma with coming alive this way.
Yeah.
So everybody is really curious. What is going on with this girl? Why does she know how to do things and Adam didn't?
Right.
So that is mystified everyone. And Professor is already on it. He is already on the prowl. He is already on the hunt. He's already doing some research.
Yeah.
And he has come up with the woman who provided the life force for Eve. He has discovered is actually Danielle Roget,
Yeah.
who was an evil woman who lived during the French Revolution, who sent many people to the guillotine. And later on, we learn, had a lover. We'll talk about that later. But this is the woman that was used to bring Eve to life. So now this evil woman, one of the most evil beings of her time, is now alive again in this body of Eve.
Yeah.
And Professor tries to tell Adam that Eve needs to be destroyed. You have to destroy this woman.
Yeah.
She's evil. She is going to wreak havoc. But Adam cannot understand this. He can't understand. He's like, I don't understand. She hasn't even been alive an hour. How can you say that she's done all these things? He can't understand that Professor is talking about the woman who brought her to life, not Eve, the person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Professor and Barnabas, they insist on speaking to her. They want to talk to Eve. And I think they come up with some clever ways to question her, and not outright, interrogate her. Just ask her a few questions, some seemingly casual questions, to see what she has to say about who she is or where she came from. But she dodges really well. But thankfully, Barnabas and Professor are hip to her, and honestly, they don't believe a word she says.
So Barnabas insists that Adam and Eve stay with him until they know more. But every time Danielle Rogier's name is said, a disturbance seems to come over the old house, and the wind and the chandelier just starts going wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. They discover that the disturbance is leading them to the basement where the experiment has just taken place. They discover that the body of Leona Eldridge is gone, which is a whole other ordeal, but they don't have time or the headspace to deal with it because they soon find out that Adam and Eve have left and nobody seems to know where they've gone.
Yeah.
So we go to Collinwood, and Professor Stokes goes to Adam's room, and David comes in and wonders what Stokes is doing there.
Mm-hmm.
Stokes says he's just looking for some old books, and David straight up tells him that he thought he was there looking for Adam.
Yeah.
And tells him that Adam has left, and that was last night.
Mm-hmm.
And said that he's never coming back.
Mm-hmm.
David tells Stokes that he's known about Adam for a while, and that Carolyn swore him to secrecy that he could never tell anybody.
Right.
And for once, David kept a secret.
Yeah, that shocked me a little bit.
But Carolyn arrives and she dismisses David to Dr. Stokes.
Yeah.
So Stokes mentions that Adam must have left with his quote-unquote friend. This surprises Carolyn and asks further about this friend.
You know, Carolyn's feelings are a little bit strange to me. It's like she didn't want to be with Adam, but she didn't want to admit that she had feelings for him, and she seems upset that he left town.
Yeah.
And a little put out that he found a woman and wants to know all about what's happened to him and where he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I say I don't understand, but it is pretty classic of someone who is afraid of their feelings, honestly. She's afraid to admit that she wants him and has feelings for him, but those feelings still bleed over into what she says, you know, and she reacts. And she wants Professor, keep me updated. Please just let me know if you find out anything. So.
And yeah, just like you said, like when when she hears this, she's visibly like saddened and shocked.
Yeah.
That Adam didn't say a word to her about it or say goodbye.
Right.
She tries to prod Stokes, for more information, but Stokes doesn't give her much more info because
he didn't have
honestly, he doesn't have any. Says that Adam could possibly be in danger and that he intends to find Adam and his new friend.
David said this thing is like, I don't, it's like David said about Adam that I don't think he would know what to do or if he could even take care of himself. And the professor was like, you are more right than you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, even David and his child mind kind of gathered that too.
And David ends up going outside to look for Adam himself, just randomly. So we flash over to the mausoleum, and Maggie is still locked in the secret room.
Yes, remember that from our last episode.
Yeah.
She's in there and she remembers.
Yeah, and Willie is there with her, and she's sitting there in silence, just staring a hole through Willie, like refusing to talk to him.
The silent treatment, man, is everything.
And it's driving him freaking crazy.
Like the hole she is staring through Willie right now. She just not saying a word, just completely vacant. It's just, wow.
Like, we rarely see Maggie like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if that might be the only time we've really seen her like that.
I mean, Maggie has always had moxie. She's always had moxie. But, she's your down home, girl next door kind of type. But she has never, ever, Maggie has never been a damsel. Never.
Yeah.
And it just, and this is one of those moments where Maggie was like, I'm going to stay strong. And she does. She does.
Like, it's driving Willie crazy. And frankly, you can see it breaking his heart.
Yeah.
Like, really. And he tells her again that he was only doing it to protect her and begs her to say something, anything. Right. But she just won't budge. And
it's like, we know Willie's heart. We know his heart. We know where his intentions lie. But Maggie doesn't. All Maggie sees is that Willie has kidnapped her.
It doesn't help that you won't tell her why. You're just like, oh, I'm just protecting you.
And this is after Willie was already arrested and sent to Wincliffe for coming after her.
Yeah.
They still haven't, I mean, she knows now. But, there's still that hanging over their heads too.
But she does finally speak after him trying to get her. And all she said, are you ready to let me out, Willie?
Yeah.
That's all she says. And she tries to reason with him a little to let her out, but not much. She tells him she's going to be very, very quiet and very, very patient with him until she gets her moment to escape.
Yeah, she was like, I'm only staying alive to get out of here.
You're going to slip, and I'm going to get a chance to get out of here, and I'm going to escape.
Exactly.
And she refuses to eat, promises she will die if she has to.
Yeah.
And he ties her up and gags her without a fight. Like, she doesn't even fight him. She's
Nope.
like, just do what you gotta do.
Do what you gotta do.
And then he has to leave.
Yeah. He goes to, Willie goes to the old house to get food, and ties her up like you said, and he finds David in the cemetery when he leaves the mausoleum.
Right.
And David, go home, like Willie does. He's like, you
what are you doing here?
Yeah, you can't be hanging around here, David. You know how he does, and we all know how curious David is, and wonders, what is Willie even doing here? What is he even doing in the cemetery?
Yeah.
And so, being David that he goes and investigates. And David knows, we remember, David knows all about the secret room.
Yeah.
And remember, he got stuck in there for all that time when Barnabas was looking for him and whatever, and the whole family was looking. And so he opens up the secret room, and there's Maggie, tied up and gagged. Yeah. And when Willie gets back to the mausoleum, David lets him know that he found Maggie there, and he let her go. He let her go. And this whole sequence had me on the edge of my seat. Like, once again, Barnabas is in danger of being found out.
Yeah.
And only this time, he's not actually a vampire.
Yeah.
And I had flashbacks of when Maggie escaped from him through the tunnels, and then from Wyncliffe, and wondered if this would finally be the moment that Maggie gets her moment to tell of what happened.
So Willie's back at the old house, like you said, getting food and whatever for Maggie. And there's a knock at the door, and he obviously hesitates to answer it, but it ends up being Professor Stokes. And he came to see Barnabas, but he's not there. And he notices that Willie is uneasy. Willie just tells him, there's something important I gotta do. As always.
I gotta get out of here.
And at that moment, the front door just randomly blows open.
Yep.
And Willie, thinking it odd, and states that the wind has been calm all day until now. Stokes points out that the trees aren't swaying from the wind. It's just the door.
It's like, come out here and look. It's like, do you see any wind out here?
Yeah, and the chandelier, of course, and the curtains in the house.
Everything's
wild. It's that the wind is inside the house.
Yeah.
And Stokes explains to Willie that he can feel it, and that it's some kind of astral projection inside the house.
Yeah.
And the same one that was there the previous night when Eve came to life.
Every time they say the name Danielle Roger, it's like the wind, and it's an astral disturbance.
Yeah. And then, of course, the wind suddenly stops as fast as it started. Yeah. And Willie ends up leaving with his thing to do.
Yeah.
Leaving Stokes there alone.
And I think this is where we flash to Maggie once she's escaped, right? Is that right?
Yeah, because Willie goes back to the mausoleum and finds David and not Maggie.
Right. Okay. So Maggie, she's out. She's in the woods. She's on the Collinwood property. And she decides that she can't really go to Collinwood. She can't go to the police because she realizes that Julia would be there to let everyone know that she's mentally unwell.
Yeah.
She's like, I gotta find Joe.
She even remembers that Julia hypnotized her, right?
Yes. Because remember, Julia tried to hypnotize her and it didn't work. She's like, it's you. You're the one that made me forget.
Yeah.
And so she decides she's got to find Joe.
Yeah.
Got to find Joe.
Yeah.
And they have already broken up at this point, Maggie and Joe. They've already broken up.
Yeah.
So while Barnabas and Willie are out searching for her, because Willie has already relayed this to Barnabas.
Yeah.
Maggie does manage to get to Joe. She does.
She does.
She walks in just as Angelique has come back to Joe and is about to sink her teeth in again. You know?
Yeah.
And she screams, she passes out, and Angelique says she'll take care of things with Maggie and just, conveniently disappears.
Yeah.
And Maggie comes to and asks, who's the girl? Who is she? And Joe says he wishes he could tell her and what she's done to him. And Maggie, this gave me chills. She was like, I can't understand. I was attacked the same way. I was like, whoa. Mm-hmm. And she just like, Joe, let's get out of town. Let's just go.
Yeah.
Get in your car. Let's go.
Yeah.
And he seems to be on board until there's a knock at the door. And Maggie's like, please don't answer. Don't answer. She's like, if you do, something bad will happen.
Mm-hmm.
He does. He does answer the door. And we have no idea who's at the door. And we never see who it is. The scene flashes over to the old house where Barnabas and Willie have been extremely unsuccessful in finding Maggie.
Yeah.
So Willie and Barnabas, they mull over what to do and what to tell the police when they inevitably come. And they don't get too much time to think about it because once again, there's a knock at the door, and they assume it's the police.
Yeah.
But it's Joe, and giving them a message from Maggie that she wants to see Barnabas at his earliest convenience.
Right.
And they're like, well, crap.
Yeah.
And they, of course, they don't waste any time, and they get their butts over there straight away.
Yeah.
And Maggie lets them in and wonders, why do y'all look so weird? What's wrong with y'all?
Mm-hmm.
But as it turns out, she just wants to give Barnabas the sketches that Sam Evans did of him when he was doing Barnabas's portrait.
Right.
And they're like, this is it? That's all you wanted? And she doesn't remember anything. And the pair of them, they're just astonished.
Yeah.
And she comments that she hasn't seen Willie in probably 3 or 4 weeks. And, don't be a stranger and stay for coffee. I never get visitors, And,
yeah.
And they refuse and they leave right away. And Barnabas gathers that it's been Nicholas who has done this for him, the way that he did with Carolyn.
Yeah.
When Carolyn died after the experiment.
Right.
But still continues to wonder why this man is helping him.
Yeah.
Why is Nicholas helping me?
Yeah. So Julia is at the old house with Barnabas at this time. We
Yes.
skip ahead a little,
Yep.
and they're at the old house together, and is filled in on everything that has happened thus far. He tells her that the police should know by now, but seem to not. And someone must have gotten to her first, like we said.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's Nicholas.
Yeah. And then they decide that, Nicholas must know the connection between Adam and Barnabas.
Yeah.
And he's not really helping Barnabas so much as he's helping Adam and helping himself.
Right.
But Barnabas is like, honestly, I don't care. I just hope the two of them, Adam and Eve, I hope they're far away.
Yes. Yes.
And that's kind of where we leave it. And then we go to the house by the sea, a.k.a. Nicholas's house, where Adam and Eve are indeed hiding out, much to Eve's chagrin. She wants to be out in the world. She wants to go and wreak her havoc on people.
Yeah.
But her only job, per Nicholas, is to make Adam believe that she loves him.
Right. And Adam is standing there with Nicholas, like in his drawing room, and Adam totally doesn't seem happy that the experiment's finally complete.
Yeah.
And Adam keeps thinking about what Professor Stokes said about Eve being evil and can't understand why he would say anything like that.
Right.
And Nicholas tells him that Stokes has always been against the experiment and maybe he didn't want him to have it made at all.
Right.
And Adam is also upset by the fact that the woman who supplied the life force died and wonders why Nicholas let her do it.
Right.
And Nicholas, makes up this story that Leona was sick with a rare disease and only had months to live anyways to make him feel better.
I guess. But the fact that this woman is now in Eve's body, Eve is not secretive, at least to Nicholas, about how she feels about Adam. She does not love him. She can't even stand the sight of him. And she's incredibly impatient and bored. Even to Adam's face, she's bored. But Nicholas makes it known that if she doesn't do exactly what he says, then her life will end, which pisses her off more. It just keeps fueling the fire, this spirit that is alive in Eve. And we learn that Eve doesn't know who she is.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't know that she is Danielle Roget.
She's having feelings.
She's having feelings.
And, like, memories, kind of, but... Like flesh
has,
memories and stuff, but she doesn't...
She has no idea
know who she is.
Who she was, or why she feels the way that she does.
Yeah.
So from here we go back to the old house, and Stokes shows up and tells Barnabas and Julia what he discovered at Collinwood, which was nothing. He didn't find Adam, but then begins to talk again about Danielle Roget, and the moment that name leaves his lips, there's another disturbance in the old house, and a book flies off the bookcase.
Yeah.
And the author of the book is Philippe Cordier, and Professor assumes that this is the spirit. This is the disturbance.
Yeah.
That he caused this book to fly off. So what do they do when they don't have any answers, y'all? They hold a seance. They hold a seance to get in touch with Philippe Cordier.
Yeah.
But
before we go on, like, speaking of, Eve not really knowing who she is, but, the feelings that she's having. And one of those feelings... She ended up kind of being attracted to Nicholas.
Yeah.
For a minute there.
Like, I think I'd like talking to you.
Yeah.
And Nicholas does nothing but fuel the fire here.
Like, we could get rid of Adam and we could run away together and this and that. And, like, she can feel his power, I think, because she's powerful and evil.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's what's attracting her to him.
She likes the bad boys.
Or not. Yeah.
Adam is too good for her.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. I mean, even we'll get to this later, but even Danielle was attracted to the bad boys, but she's still a woman and she still finds love and she still finds the one she's attracted to. I'm not going to say it because we are going to talk about it later, and I have lots of questions about it, but she's attracted to Nicholas because Nicholas is a powerful man and she feels that, and it's a very interesting very interesting spirit living in.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But now they're set up to hold the seance here, and they sit down and begin. And Barnabas is the one who goes into a trance and begins to speak French.
Yeah, which was kind of hot, by the way.
Yeah.
Good on you, Jonathan Frid.
And Stokes asks if they can speak to him in English, and he begins to. And he says, in fact, that he is Philippe Cordier, and says that he is in love with Danielle Roget.
Yeah. Yeah, we find out that this guy was Danielle Roget's lover, and that she's been taken from him.
Yeah.
And
by another man.
And he plans to kill the man who says he loves her.
Yeah.
No names, no nothing, just the man who says he loves her. And
yeah, it says that her soul was here at the old house, but now is at another house by the sea.
Yep.
And Julia immediately says, Nicholas.
Yes, read Nicholas Blair.
But Stokes asks, just let him finish. And says he will, like you said, kill the man who took her from him.
Yeah.
Adam. And that's it. It just ends there. And Barnabas comes back too, and they fill him in. And they are positive that they have the confirmation they needed to know that Nicholas summoned Danielle back from the dead and gave her a different name and used her as the life force.
So he does carry out his threat pretty immediately to kill Adam. And first Eve just shrieks and freaks out and says, somebody in this house is gonna die, you know. and then Adam just starts choking.
Yeah.
Can't breathe.
Yeah.
And then at the old house, Barnabas is also choking and dying.
Yeah.
And luckily, Nicholas is there with Adam, and he's powerful enough to send Philippe back to his grave.
Yeah.
And it does save both Adam and Barnabas. So Julia and Barnabas soon realize that Nicholas is in control of both Adam and Eve. So they begin to devise a plan to kill Eve.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Carolyn is paying Harry to go and find Adam. And she says, go check at the old house. I just have a feeling. So Harry goes down to the old house and overhears this plot to kill Eve at the old house.
Yeah.
So instead of going back to Carolyn and reporting what he found, he goes to Nicholas and tries to sell the information he found.
Yeah.
But Nicholas is no fool. He's no fool. And gets the information from Harry without paying his ridiculous price of $5,000.
Right.
And as an added bonus, Nicholas informs Harry that he can continue to work for Carolyn, but now your allegiance lies with me, my friend.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Harry works for Carolyn, but his allegiance is with Nicholas now. Nicholas first.
Yeah.
And so once Harry goes back to Carolyn and reports that he found nothing, Carolyn decides to go down to Nicholas's place herself, and she tells them that she never got a chance to say goodbye to Adam and wants to know if Nicholas has seen or heard from him, all while Adam is in the other room and can hear every word.
Yeah. Nicholas, he's like, you've never seen $5,000 in your life, and you're not gonna see it now. Harry.
I know, just the way he was like, just the way that Nicholas just handled him so well. I was like, no,
you dumbass.
and Harry was. It's like, did you really think that was gonna work? Honestly,
trying to blackmail Nicholas, really?
Nicholas can't. No. I mean, Nicholas would love to kill Barnabas to keep him from plotting to kill Eve, and Adam is certainly ready to kill him himself.
Yeah.
But Nicholas is not sure that he can kill Barnabas without killing Adam.
Right.
So instead, Nicholas ensures Adam that he has a very special way of dealing with him so that his plot to kill Eve will fail, and then asks Adam to go and find Angelique. We remember that Angelique is a vampire, y'all.
Yeah.
She's a vampire. That was her punishment for screwing up for, the umpteenth time.
Right.
Angelique is not in the house because Angelique disobeys at every turn, and she is out doing her own thing.
Yeah.
And this is another chance where we get to see the magic mirror on the wall. Yeah. And Nicholas uses the mirror to locate Angelique, who is terrorizing Jeff Clark at his apartment. Because, Jeff Clark is still under Angelique's spell.
Yeah.
And just as Angelique's about to bite him again, Nicholas grabs her up by the back of the neck with her hair, and just tosses her one of those looks that only he can give, like, Disobeying again, huh?
Right.
I love it. And Jeff, being ever so gallant, thinks that he can take on Nicholas. But Nicholas just kind of nonchalantly says, go sit over there, Mr. Clark.
Right.
Go sit over there.
And with Angelique, he's like, go back home. And he's like, and I will be back before dawn to deal with you. Oh, my goodness.
And he was like, go home, I'll deal with you. And then just wipes Jeff's memory. And
yeah,
right after he tells him how he met Angelique and how they attempted the experiment.
Yeah.
And so Nicholas now has all of this information, wipes Jeff's memory clean. He is no longer the victim of a vampire.
Yeah.
And goes on his way. And then he does this little clever thing where he leaves Jeff's apartment after he's wiped his memory and then knocks on his door. Hey, Jeff, let's get a drink.
Right. Let's get a drink.
And
like, are we friends?
And Jeff's like, cool, let's do it. Like it never happened.
Yeah. Oh,
I love it. So Nicholas, after this, goes home and taunts Angelique a bit, but then tells her Barnabas is going to be her next victim. And she's like, is this some kind of joke?
Right.
And Nicholas is like, no, it's not a joke. Yeah, I know you want this. And she's just, oh, she can't wait. Mm-hmm. She cannot wait. Yeah, very breathy, almost hyperventilating. Ah, I love it. But, oh my gosh. Anyway, we're going to get to that. So we take a little break from Adam and Eve and Nicholas and Angelique, and we go to Collinwood, where Elizabeth is asking Vicky to look over the model of her mausoleum.
Yeah.
Elizabeth is still obsessed with death. Yeah. Elizabeth still thinks it's going to be soon. And she's had a model built of this mausoleum that she wants to build.
Yeah.
And Vicky is a little bit impatient in this scene. And she's once again trying to convince Liz that she's not going to die and you need to get help.
Yeah.
And she's not tiptoeing. She's frank with Liz, and in the way that she tells her, you need to get help, and I'm not promising you anything after you die because you're not going to die.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was kind of surprising. Like Vicky was like, I've had enough. I love you, but I've had enough.
Yeah. And she assures Liz that she'll always be there for her. And as long as she just tries to help herself.
Right.
There's hope that things will be okay. But yeah, she's like, I'm done with it.
Yeah. I'm sick, and everyone in the house is sick of the doom and gloom surrounding Liz, which is evident when Roger comes slamming through the door and shouting at Liz because she's once again talking about death.
Yeah.
And he lashes out and destroys her model.
Yeah.
And tells her that the people in town are probably laughing at you because of your insanity,
Yeah.
But later on, after she leaves the room and, leaves crying, Roger regrets what he did, and, it's... I just don't know what to do with her, Vicky. I don't know what to do,
Yeah.
But later on, Elizabeth is in her room and she hears her own voice calling to her.
Mm-hmm.
Get ready, it's coming. Get ready for your demise.
Yeah.
And she wanders off into the cemetery and stumbles over Peter Bradford's grave, just as Jeff Clark wanders up. Jeff has showed up at Collinwood to try to make up with Vicky now that he's no longer under Angelique's control.
Right.
But... she sees Jeff. No, you're Peter Bradford. No, you're dead. You're dead.
Yeah.
And she passes out.
Mm-hmm.
And he brings her back to Collinwood, and Vicky can't hear her breathing. She can't hear her heartbeat, and they assume that she is dead. The very thing that Liz has been terrified of.
Yeah.
But this time, y'all, Elizabeth shoots straight up, and she was like, and now she's more convinced more than ever. She's like, you thought I was dead. I told you this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And now she's convinced more than ever that she's going to be buried alive.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, after this incident, how was that supposed to help her believe otherwise?
Yeah.
How is she supposed to be less inclined to believe that?
Yeah.
I mean, they were surrounding her saying she was dead, but Jeff said maybe she's just in a trance, which I think is probably closer to the truth.
Yeah.
But... this just made it worse for Liz. It just did. It did. And so after this incident and all of Jeff's help, Vicky takes him back, and they decide to give their relationship another try.
Yeah. And there was a moment in there where Roger, when Jeff was Jeff and Vicky were in the drawing room together at one point, and the protective attitude that Roger had towards Vicky here, it was the same that he had always had for Carolyn. Sadly, it seems the hardest to give it to the one who needs it the most, his kid. But you see, he always, doted Carolyn, oh, kitten, this and this and that.
Yeah.
And always took care of her feelings and make sure she was okay. He actually had this attitude towards Vicky in this scene,
just so y'all know,
protecting her from Jeff.
Carolyn's real name, is Kitten. It's not Carolyn. It's Kitten Stoddard.
Kitten Stoddard.
Oh, I love that. I think that's one of the cutest like pet names I've ever heard is Kitten. Her real name is Kitten.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree. You're absolutely right about Roger. Like, and I had planned to bring this up later, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it now since you said it. But you know, it reminds me of when Dark Shadows was first on in the first, you know, beginning episodes pre Barnabas era, the Laura and the you know the secrets that that Elizabeth and Roger were hiding, and Roger was so very against even having Vicky in that house.
Yeah.
You know, convincing her to leave at every turn. What a switch.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's treating her like she's a daughter. She's a niece. She's whatever. She's family.
Yeah.
And I love how protective he's become over her. So I agree.
Yeah.
So later on, we're going to jump ahead just a little bit, but later on, Julia she's given Barnabas a Dexter needle full of drugs that is going to kill Eve and make it look like a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And Julia has some very strong reservations about the whole thing and thinks that it's too dangerous for Barnabas to try to take out Eve.
Yeah.
But we all know how bullheaded Barnabas can be.
Yeah.
And that night, Julia has a dream. She hears Barnabas calling to her and, Julia, you were right.
Yeah.
You were so right. And she follows his voice to the woods and sees Barnabas against a tree just covered in blood.
Yeah.
And he collapses there and dies.
Mm-hmm.
That scene freaked me out, y'all. It was like to hear his voice the way it was and then just see his wide-eyed face with just blood on his face and then just collapsing and dying there.
Right.
Woo!
And Grayson Hall, I love you, that famous scream
Yes.
of hers.
No! Barnabas, no! Love you, girl. Love you.
But can I say this? Julia, I think, is the only one who never really exaggerated her screams. And let me explain. Like, you know, the Scream Queens, you know, Carolyn and Maggie and Victoria, like they would scream and then scream and scream and scream, like ah. Julia would just one good scream.
Yeah, it's all you need.
I love that about her. She wasn't. I'm like, okay, stop screaming. We hear you.
We get you. The point is delivered.
One good one.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
You're right. You're very right.
Even Elizabeth, you know, she let it go on and on.
I know.
On. Like, no.
I know.
Just give him one good one.
You're right. So when she goes to tell Barnabas about this the next morning, he completely ridicules her and tells her how silly she is for putting all of her faith in a dream. And she tells him that she thinks Nicholas is setting up a trap for him and waiting for Barnabas to walk right into it.
Yeah.
And okay, I just have to say this because sometimes I really hated the way that Barnabas responds to Julia sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Julia is smart as a whip. She's a doctor. She's a surgeon. She's a scientist. Look at all this crap that she's accomplished, even up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And Barnabas uses that to be like, Julia, I'm disappointed in you. I can't believe that you would put that much stock into a dream. Barnabas, shut the hell up.
I know.
You know? It's like...
He still has to be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're 200 years old?
Exactly.
Get the hell out of here.
That just makes you old. I'm sorry. It grinds my gears, y'all. It just... Shut up.
Just shut up. And Julia needed to be like, Barnabas, just shut up.
And for the record, she was absolutely right.
Yeah.
She was right.
Yeah.
And Barnabas states that even if he did believe her, it's too late to do anything about it. Yeah, okay, Barnabas. But because the plan is already set in motion, he's already sent Professor Stokes to the house to scope it out. And so this is where we go to the house by the sea, a.k.a. Nicholas's house, where Stokes and he's there, and Nicholas is very welcoming, and he's quite the host.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I walked into Nicholas's, he would make me feel comfortable immediately, y'all.
Right.
Thank you for the glass of sherry. Thank you. And like he even knows what Stokes likes to drink. And Stokes is like, got any PG? Got any? I mean, back in my day, it was tequila, and tequila and I are no longer friends. So, but like he even knows what Stokes likes to drink, and Stokes like, what the heck? He was like, hey, I'm just very good at this, you know. And anyway, Nicholas knew how to charm a guy.
Yeah.
And Stokes says he's come to invite Blair up to Barnabas's house for dinner. And Stokes is like, Nicholas is like, I didn't think Barnabas liked me. Forgive me. This is kind of a surprise.
Right.
And Stokes has always got the right answers.
Yeah.
And convinces him to come. And I love in this scene how Stokes kind of rips on Barnabas while he's talking to Nicholas. He comments on how Barnabas is a frustrating man in the way that he refuses to have any modern technology in his home or around him, which is the reason that Stokes even had to come there in the first place, because he doesn't have a telephone. And by the way, you're going to be dining by candlelight because he doesn't have any electricity either.
Yeah, but there was still one outstanding question was like, well, why couldn't Barnabas come and invite me himself? Why'd he send you?
But Stokes plays it off as Barnabas just being eccentric.
Yeah.
And so Stokes gets a tour of Nicholas. Nicholas is like, let me give you a tour of the place. Because Stokes is like, if I'd have known this place was like this, I'd have been here sooner. He's like, oh, let me give you the tour.
Yeah.
And he gets back to the old house, and he's drawn up a floor plan, pretty elaborate floor plan. He dogs on it and says, sorry, it's kind of crude. He's like, whatever, it'll work, And the three of them plot out the night.
Yeah.
And they're insanely prepared. They have every angle covered. The only problem is that Nicholas has been spying on them the whole time via the magic mirror.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Guess who's coming to dinner? He knows the entire plan. And they have no idea. I mean, they're probably patting themselves on the back.
I know, they're like, oh yeah, we got him.
It's like, oh, this is so good. No, there's no way this can't work.
Dun, dun, dun.
And to top it all off, Nicholas plays along. Completely plays along.
He's like, oh, nice to see you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
He goes through the dinner party. Julia comes in and interrupts like they had planned to say, hey, Julia, or Barnabas, Elizabeth wants to see you. Because Elizabeth's been sick. She passed out. They thought she was dead. She wants to see Barnabas. And he's like, oh, I gotta go. And Nicholas was like, oh,
really? I'm so sorry.
He's like, oh, if you're afraid of offending me, go. It's okay. He plays along.
Oh my gosh.
And the entire plan goes off without a hitch, except for the fact that Angelique is waiting for him.
Yep.
And he succumbs to her as her victim.
Yep.
Angelique. Ooh. Okay, honestly, in this moment when Angelique sunk his teeth into him and he is now the victim of a vampire, how in the world did Barnabas feel at that moment?
Right, like death again.
Right. He was just cured of his vampirism. He has been living life as a man and has finally gotten over this whole trying to get his 1795 life back. He is living in the 60s with his new family and is just happy as a clown.
Yeah.
And he's gotten his second chance at life, and now this.
Yeah.
And we soon learn that Barnabas is going to feel everything that he made his victims feel.
Well, and Angelique says to him that she's the only bride he'll ever have. But then he says that he hates her, and she's like, your hatred for me could never be as strong as mine for you.
What?
I'm like, what?
and then again, they literally start rehashing everything about him not wanting to accept her love and how he wanted Josette, and now he comes back with he doesn't have her because of Angelique, and she says she can finally make him want her, even though she just said, I hate you, homie. I'm like, do you hate him or don't you, Angelique?
Right. But isn't this exactly the reason she chose not to put a spell on him? Because she wanted him to, like, come willingly?
Yes!
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, where is the logic? I don't understand the logic, y'all. If y'all got something to say, let us know in the comments, because I'm bewildered by this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So Barnabas returns home, misses Nicholas only by a few minutes, and he tells Stokes and Julia that they failed because Eve wasn't there. And of course he leaves out the part of becoming Angelique's victim. And he quickly sends everybody home and collapses in the chair. But Angelique is not far behind. She did not waste any time coming back to torture him. So that's where we'll leave this for now, guys. So things are heating up. It's getting real spicy, real juicy.
And just the preview for the next episode. I mean, she's now got Barnabas to torture. So that just kind of leaves us with Joe.
Yes.
Like, what is she going to do with Joe? Because she already told Nicholas, I don't want Joe. I don't want anything to do with him. He drives me nuts. I don't like him.
Now that she has Barnabas, Joe is no longer a playing card for her. She no longer wants him.
Yeah.
She wants to cast Joe aside like a used socks.
Yeah.
Like a used sock. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. So, yeah. So if you have any comments, leave them in the comment section on YouTube, because that's where we are. And we're on your listening services, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you want to listen, guys. There we are. We appreciate you guys so very much. If you are old school, that's cool too. Our email is betweenthe2021@gmail. Or find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter. Excuse me, find us on X. My bad. Until then, guys, keep it between us and the shadows. Good night.
Good night. Oh, you thought you were rid of me, didn't you? Well, you were wrong. Nicholas allowed me to live again. You're frightened, aren't you? Oh, I like seeing that expression in your face. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Aren't you curious to know why I'm alive? How Nicholas allowed me to live? This is what I am. This is what Nicholas has made me.
You've been listening to Between the Shadows, a Dark Shadows podcast. All original Dark Shadows music, video clips, images, and media are not owned by Between the Shadows and is the sole property of Dan Curtis Productions and is only used to promote Dark Shadows and should not be distributed, copied, or reproduced.